Before we go into how to translate the subjunctive and its various uses in the New Testament, I want to go over a couple of last forms. If you take the Luo paradigm for the present active subjunctive and drop the stems, the forms that remain here are in fact the forms that are used for eİmι. So whenever you want to use something like I might be, you, singular might be, he, she, it might be, we might be, you all might be, or they might be, it's simply the suffix endings when you drop the stem from the Luo paradigm. So those are the forms. And then we mentioned in the previous instructional video that the primary forms of the subjunctive in the New Testament are the present and the aorist. There is a perfect subjunctive. It is used in secular discourse, but in terms of the New Testament, it's rarely used. In fact, it's only used with one form, and that's with the verb oida, which is I am knowing. So rather than memorizing a whole paradigm, here are the uses of the perfect active subjunctive for the verb oida, I know, I am knowing. So let's get to the more exciting part about the subjunctive, which is how it's used in the New Testament. And the subjunctive form is something that you simply cannot run away from. The mood is used prolifically throughout the entire New Testament, and it actually has a lot of important uses for the New Testament text. And so we're going to go over all these uses as a general survey, and then you'll be able to work out some of these uses in your homework. One of the easiest ways to spot the use of subjunctive is the conjunctions that are used specifically for the subjunctive mood. So there's certain conjunctions that as soon as you see the conjunction, you know that the verb is going to be in the subjunctive. And one of those conjunctions is hina, which is translated in order that. And in the negative, if hina is used in conjunction with a negative particle, it can mean lest. And so here's one example. Sirs, what must I do in order that I might be saved? This is the Philippian jailer saying this to Paul and Silas. Well, if you look at in order that I might be saved, you have hina, the conjunction, and when you see that hina conjunction, look for a verb in the subjunctive. Hina only uses the subjunctive verb. So here you have the first person singular, aorist, passive, subjunctive being used. I might be saved. And then for 1 John 2:11, this is a good example of where hina is combined with the me, and this can be translated in order not to. So you can translate this as in order not, but also you can translate this idiomatically simply as lest. So in 1 John 2:1, my little children, I'm writing these things to you so that you may not sin, or lest you sin. Either translation would work, where you have hina plus me, and then the hamartano as a subjunctive. So this ada gives it away, and this is the verb for sin. This comes from hamartano, and then its verbal root from which the aorist is based is hamart. And so the less translation can only be used when there's a negative particle. Otherwise, you're going to translate hina as in order that. So that's so one use of the subjunctive mood is it can be used in dependent clauses or sentences where a specific conjunction is being used. We went over what happens when we use the word hina. Here are some other conjunctions that use the subjunctive. So remember that when is hate. And that can use, hate uses the indicative mood. But if you add a particle to it, this indefinite particle, which is part of your vocabulary and something you already know, it contracts and you get this form, haton, which is whenever. So it's not just when, but whenever. So remember that subjunctive is the mood for probability or possibility. So if you have an indefinite conjunction used anywhere, it's likely to use subjunctive. So if I want to say, if I use whenever, haton, likely it'll use subjunctive as the verb. If I use this form of if, which is a plus, again, the indefinite particle on, it contracts to get aon. This can be translated as if and sometimes when. It will likely use the subjunctive. Has on, whoever, will likely use the subjunctive. Hapu on means wherever. So has means who, add the indefinite particle, becomes whoever. Hapu means where, add the indefinite article, means wherever. Heos means until, and heos on, both are, these are synonyms. They mean the same thing, and they both also can use subjunctive verb. Another part of the subjunctive is its use in conditional clauses. So we're going to expand our discussion a little bit about the use of the subjunctive. And that's not the subjective, but the subjunctive. Sorry for the misspelling here. The subjunctive. There are several different ways to use if-then clauses. There's actually 4 types, of which the subjunctive is one of them. If the if condition is met, then the outcome is likely but not certain. So likely, not certain. So it's interesting that the temptations of Jesus are not used in indicative, as if Satan could guarantee that he would do these things, but the subjunctive is being used. There's an element of doubt whether Satan can actually carry out on what he says. So if Satan, when Satan says in Matthew 4:9, if you fall down and worship me, I will give you these things. The condition to worship me, this ending here tells me that this is an aorist, active, subjunctive, second person singular. And can Satan give you all these things? There's some doubt placed because the subjunctive mood is being used. So this future more probable use of subjunctive is the more frequently used form when the subjunctive is used in an if-then clause. There's another use, which is a little bit rarer, where if the subjunctive is used, but it's used in something like a proverb or axiomatic setting. So in axioms and proverbs, if it's kind of a proverbial setting, then the use of subjunctive is not, the use of the subjunctive does not mean something that likely happened, but there's no guarantee. Rather, the use of the subjunctive makes the if-then saying or proverb something timeless, not bound by time. So an example of this is in John 11:9, and here the subjunctive is being used. If anyone walks during the day, he does not stumble. That's much more like a proverb. And the subjunctive is being used because of its timelessness. And so this is a present or a general axiomatic use. Now the subjunctive mood is what we call a third class if-then clause or conditional clause. There are other ways to form a conditional clause, and I'll just give it a brief overview. But a first-class conditional clause is when the present indicative is being used in the prostasis or the if part of the clause, and that is usually used when the outcome is more certain. A second-class if-then clause or conditional clause is when the aorist or the imperfect indicative is being used in the if part or the prostasis part of an if-then clause. And that's also used to describe something that's fairly certain. The subjunctive mood, its two uses, it's likely but not 100% certain, probable, or if it's used in a timeless axiom or proverb. And lastly, the rarest of the if-then clauses is when the optative mood is being used, and you'll learn about the optative later.